Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for the major stories in detail. There was a massive raid on 2 properties along Princess Street in downtown Kingston, where members of the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch, CTOC, confiscated hundreds of items believed to be counterfeit. CVM Live's Joel Croskill reports.
Detectives attached to the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch descended on 2 properties on Princess Street that were believed to be peddling counterfeit items.
As a result of police investigation, we came to 84 and 88 Princess Street, 2 stores that are operated by Chinese national, and we have identified a significant amount of counterfeit products, shoes, Adidas, Nike, Louis Vuitton, you name the brand. And so we're in the process of seizing the items.
The raid, which began at 9 Wednesday morning, has uncovered millions of dollars worth of goods that violate intellectual property laws.
We have not yet completed our checks, but I'm looking at anywhere between $300, $400 million, because the entire store has counterfeit product of different types.
ACP Bailey pondered the business's connection to organized crime.
If you understand the nature of organized crime, you have structured business that actually support the underworld. I can't say this in particular has anything linkage to organized crime, but organized criminal normally sometimes establish genuine business and use the proceed in the criminal underworld.
Many of the bystanders along Princess Street pleaded for leniency for the Chinese business operators.
Them figure them a break and get them a break through. Them not do nothing when nobody else on the door. And the best of the best, see the booty and them buy it in there and see that it's still a wear. Them figure them a break through, man. Come on, man. All of we are all human being. Them figure them a break through. Them figure go and allow the people them. So what them do about bootleg? What them do about bootleg? What about bootleg, so? When them a pressure them stuff, and them figure go and allow the China them.
One of the onlookers pondered how the counterfeit goods made it into the country to begin with.
First and foremost, or reach Jamaica. You can't come to the China them, because there's something I go and back, so it reach yes, so now come with the police them forgot down, so go here with what I go and feet reach in there, so load the China them, where them for run go for down a custom, or reach here.
In total, there were 6 persons taken into custody, including 1 female. Joel Croskill, CVM Live.
The disquiet which erupted inside the St. Thomas Parish Council meeting yesterday regarding a motion of no confidence is far from over, because the opposition says in light of a walkout, its next move is to seek legal intervention. More from Curlin Brown.
Now, Section 19 of the Local Government Act, that where a mayor has resigned, the deputy portrait assumed that role. And we don't disagree with that. You are the mayor. Yes.
Despite arguments and counter-arguments,
So, the record speak that?
Mr. Chairman, my hands have been up for a while. No, my hands have been up for a while.
No.
You
can run, but you can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide.
these images brought to an end Tuesday's special meeting of the St. Thomas Parish Council, a heated climax to a controversial situation.
You will be the shortest mayor of Morat Bay.
An irate minority leader Hubert Williams and his colleague Councillor Marsha Francis left in the chambers. They had failed in their attempt to uphold a no-confidence motion to have the mayor and deputy mayor removed. Prior to this meeting, the mayor at the time, Lenworth Rawle, resigned in March, and Michael Hugh, his deputy, moved into the position of mayor and chairman of the municipal corporation. The PNP councillors had the support of some of its bigwigs, including the shadow minister in the local government, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke.
What concerns me, though, is that the CEO, who is supposed to be the professional in all of this, I believe, showed her colors today. And it is always, always, always disappointing when professionals join the politicians in the politics, because the CEO's responsibility is to make sure that the rules are followed regardless of who it favors in terms of political party.
Well, the opposition says it plans to consult its legal team while it pushes to get the municipality in good hands.
We know that what happened today is exactly how the JLP has behaved every time they have faced a no-confidence motion, is that they either create a ruckus or they find a way to adjourn the meeting precipitously and walk out before the meeting is properly ended.
CVM Live tried to get additional clarification from Mayor Hugh, but he declined our invitation. Curlin Brown, CVM Live.
Examining the impact of an imbalanced law as it relates to sexual offences against the young, parliamentarians debate the Child Diversion Act. For that report, we turn to Joel Croskill.
St. Anne Southeast Member of Parliament Lisa Hanna is pleading for legislators to address discrepancies in the law that sees a lesser punishment for a man that rapes a boy as opposed to a man that rapes a girl.
There are two laws or two acts in this country that give our boys a hard time, our little boys. And under the act, essentially, under the Offences Against the Persons Act of 1860, a boy cannot be raped in this country, because the way we define sexual intercourse in this country is the penetration, it's vaginal penetration.
Mrs. Hanna went further in detailing the disparity between how they treat sexual offences with girls as opposed to boys.
When we were heading the CDA, we saw young boys who were raped. The maximum fine for a young boy or for a rapist, in quotes, of a boy, a little boy, is 10 years. When you look at the Sexual Offences Act of 2009, you can get up to 15 years for a girl and maximum life or imprisonment. Minimum is 15 years.
Hanna was making her contribution to the debate on the Child Diversion Act, which involves the design of measures that address the needs of children accused of committing a crime. Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, MP for St. Andrews Southwest, highlighted aspects of the act that made her uncomfortable.
And certainly I would expect that sex between an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old is a different kettle of fish from between a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old, for example. And I would want to know that this bill would have a way of dealing with it. I don't see it, and therefore I become extremely uncomfortable not seeing it.
Joel Croskill, CVM Live.
Newly appointed Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Audley Shaw, says agriculture is an engine for economic growth and an enabler for rural development. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas reports.
Minister Shaw says although agriculture in Jamaica had begun on a plantation that was dominated with sugarcane, emancipation created the avenue for former slaves to cultivate lands for subsistence farming. He cited the 2007 agriculture census, saying present farming is not without its difficulties. He was speaking at the launch of Farmers Month at the Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, on Wednesday.
These farmers are still, however, faced with some of the issues they encountered in the post-emancipation era. The issues of lack of access to good, flat, arable, fertile lands, access to credit, crop insurance, and appropriate technology. These are some of the things that we still challenge us, and we have to confront them.
Despite these limitations, including an $800 million import bill, the minister says the JAS is the vanguard for small farmers in Jamaica. He says the country can create sufficient surpluses to feed the nation and other countries.
A closer look at the import bill shows a significant portion of it relates to processed food and snacks, which we can live without and still remain healthy, even healthier. Some of those processed foods coming in here, we don't even know the conditions under which they are processed.
Minister Shaw says farmers are central to the ministry's mandate as they have the capacity to produce adequately for overall development.
It's just a week now since I assumed this portfolio, but I've already made it abundantly clear that my mission is to unleash the latent potential of agriculture in order to achieve the objectives of food self-sufficiency.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
In the CVM Live update, the extradition hearing of controversial Muslim cleric Sheikh Abdullah Al-Faisal has again been pushed back to next week. The extradition hearing is to determine whether Al-Faisal is to be sent to the United States to stand trial for terrorism-related charges. The presiding judge today ruled that he is not in a position to order the production of any more evidence. In August 2007, Al-Faisal was arrested on a provisional warrant under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty after he was accused by U.S. authorities of engaging in terrorism-related activities. The matter is put off until Wednesday, April 11. Jamaica is now the first Caribbean country to formally adopt the Blue Heart campaign, which seeks to raise public awareness and education about human trafficking. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has this report.
With approximately 20 to 40 million persons living in slavery today and thousands being forced into human trafficking, the Blue Heart campaign was launched as a global initiative to fight the social issue and its impact on society. The most recent launch was held at the St. William Grant Park in downtown Kingston, where blue lights were turned on at 6 p.m. Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, says Jamaica's partnership with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime sends a strong signal to the international community.
We have pockets of marginalized communities in our municipality that make residents vulnerable to various forms of human trafficking, including domestic servitude, sexual exploitation, and forced begging for our children. We need to be more alert to spot them, stop them, and report them.
Mayor Williams adds that trafficking in persons is an evasive and pervasive crime that affects our most vulnerable Jamaicans.
I, Mayor of Kingston, do hereby declare the parish of Kingston and St. Andrew fully committed to the national fight against human trafficking and support for victims of the offense, and further promote the move for Jamaica's formal adoption of the Blue Heart campaign.
The Blue Heart campaign launch seeks to strengthen the partnership between Jamaica and global United Nations brands in pushing against human trafficking in the island. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Time now for regional and international news with our reporter, Vaughn Thorpe.
In Trinidad and Tobago, a 70-year-old man has been charged with sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl. Part-time taxi driver Jifton Raymond appeared before the San Fernando senior magistrate, Cheryl Ann Antoine, charged that on April 1, he sexually penetrated the child. The father of 8, who had no pending or previous matters before the court, was placed on a $100,000 bail to be approved by the clerk of the peace. Now, a Jamaican murder suspect who was denied entry to St. Lucia last week has been held in Antigua after hiding out in the country for some time. The man has been identified as 28-year-old Ron Godfrey Hill. According to media reports, Hill, who is a murder suspect and believed to be a member of a notorious gang in Jamaica, was residing in Antigua for at least 18 months. Last week, he and his girlfriend left Antigua on a late flight to St. Lucia, and on arrival in Antigua, he was denied entry because his name was flagged in the security system as someone wanted for murder. Authorities in St. Lucia sent the two back to Antigua, where he was detained and deported on Monday. Now on to Barbados. Exploration of the nation's potential offshore petroleum resources is expected to begin within the next year. Now, speaking in Trinidad last week at a regional symposium on strengthening CARICOM energy collaboration, Minister with responsibility for energy, Senator Darcy Boy, stated that Barbados had successfully negotiated exploration licenses for 2 blocks within BHP Billiton and had awarded another block to Repsol. And finally, on the international scene, 50 years after the murder of Martin Luther King Jr., Commemorations took place across the U.S. to honor the legacy of the black civil rights leader who was assassinated in 1968. One held at the church in Memphis where King gave his final speech. His daughter told the audience that America should repent for its failure to eliminate racism. More from the BBC.
It's time for America to repent because we have not in 50 years dealt with, as Daddy challenged us, to deal with the last vestiges of racism.
Dr. King traveled to Memphis because he saw the city and the plight of the sanitation workers as part of his larger campaign against poverty. Laws prohibiting segregation and enshrining the right to vote for all led to integration. But true equality, he believed, meant fighting economic injustice.
And that's it for regional and international stories. I am Vaughn Thorpe.
More news for you later in the program, News Live in 5 with Joel Croskill. But our panel discussion this evening, we focus on the embattled Cornwall Regional Hospital, the state of the health facility and how it's impacting patients, residents and medical officials. What's the future of the CRH? We will address the issues when we come back with Elon Beckford, president of the Junior Medical Doctors Association, and Carmen Johnson, president of the Nurses Association of Jamaica. Panel discussion is next.